very unique guest next week have been confirmed. And we will line that up as the week moves along here. But I cannot believe that next week, next Tuesday on this show, we will be covering the election in real time. And that is pretty crazy because it has just been one of the stupidest, most insane years in this country's history, going through the shame that this country has gone through. And it's not just the conspiracy of what's going on, because that is there, that part's there, that's solid, but it's everything else that we've had to endure. The personal attacks, embarrassing for this country on both sides. All of the debates, embarrassing for this country on both sides. The media, embarrassing for this country on both sides. The way that the country itself and its citizens are reacting to both sides is embarrassing to us all. And so here we go. It's actually going to happen next Tuesday. And so just be prepared. We don't do politics on the show, but this is a little bit too important for our country and the world not to cover it, and to cover it properly. Okay? Not how mainstream media is going to cover it. We're going to do it our style. So just be ready, and we'll have a good time. I assure you, we will look at this in a serious manner and laugh at the same time. Okay? All right. So tonight, Douglas Rushkoff is here. Michael Avon Oeming is here. And tomorrow night, Holly Cook. And then Thursday night, Fader Night with John Rappaport. Last night, we were at the Omen house, and we used Tascam digital recorders throughout the home. We used their DR100 MK3s, Mark IIIs. We had 4 of them throughout the house to capture any EVP activity that would happen during the show and while we were at the house. And I want to thank Tascam right now for supporting us and getting that done, and for supporting Fade to Black. And, of course, that is Eric Larson, Jeff Lady, and Jim Mack over at Tascam. And for more information on their products, just go to Tascam.com. We have a lot of audio to review. We have 4 recorders with 4-5 hours on each one. So there you go. Do the math. That's 20 hours of listening that has to be done. But when and if we find something cool, and I hope that we do, we will be sharing all of that with you. All right, let's get this show cracking, man. I'm so excited tonight. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Facebook, YouTube, you know what to do. Everything's Fade to Black. JChurch Radio, Fade to Black. Just go follow, like, and subscribe right now over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. You can email throughout the show tonight, Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. The sandbox in Twitter is hashtag F2B. Any questions or comments during the show tonight, just use hashtag F2BQ. Twitter is always live to my left. All right? Life Change Tea. Tomorrow night, Ronnie McMullen's going to join us for a few minutes tomorrow night, and to discuss a few things. Of course, we'll talk about Life Change Tea and GetTheTea.com and his new products over there and what he's got to offer. But we're gonna, I think tomorrow night we're gonna do a little conspiracy of politics too as well. And Ronnie is on point there, so Ronnie's going to join us tomorrow night. So get ready for that. In the meantime, just go visit Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Mention Jimmy when you order, either over the phone or online, and you will get free shipping because you're a fade or not, and you know somebody on the inside. Okay. Now, in a few short minutes, River Moon Coffee, they are going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes, so we'll get to that. And they are the makers of the Fade to Black blend. It is dark. It is complex. It is smoky. Just go to River Moon Coffee. The banner is right there on our site. And use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order. And for everybody that has checked out the coffee, let us know. Let us know what you think, because it is truly amazing. And how they get it done, and who is River Moon Coffee. Well, Juanita and Jeff are going to be here in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about all of that. And also, of course, Studio Dome and their Fade or Not special, which is a stereo, Bluetooth, wireless Bluetooth, no cables, stereo system in a hard shell case, $129. In a hard shell case, power cables, everything that you need. You know, in this kit that you get, they have a dual charging cable, right? USB charging cable. So it just plugs in, but on the end, it goes to 2. So you can power both speakers at the same time. How cool is that? You're not going to know until you get yours. 2 SBB2 speakers, power cables, everything, $129. JCRTWS is the promo code. Click on the banner right now over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Chili Pepper frontman Anthony Kiedis is 54. Jenny McCarthy is 44. Did you see the movie Dirty Love? You see the movie Dirty Love, Jenny McCarthy? That is one of the funniest movies ever. So if you haven't, go and check it out. And that's all I'm going to say. I became, and for me, after watching Dirty Love, I became a Jenny McCarthy fan. She was cool. You know, she was cool. She was funny before that. She's funny today. Dirty Love is a great movie. Def Leppard drummer Rick Allen today is 53. And he is quite possibly the best one-armed drummer that I know. Yeah. All right. On this day in history, in 1512, the Sistine Chapel ceiling opens to the public. Yeah, one of Michelangelo's finest works. But they opened it to the public 500 years ago. Wow. Fader fact. Chimps use medicinal plants to treat themselves for illness and injury. Yeah, I did not know that. That's been vetted, by the way. All right, well, a week ago, we announced Fade to Black blend, the coffee from River Moon Coffee. And I have said many times on this show leading up to this that, man, it would be really cool, because I love coffee. And every day on the show, every single day, you hear me do this. That's because I'm drinking coffee. You know my love for coffee. And over the years, Rita and I have tried every single, the expensive, the cheap, we have tried everything. We have gone through last year. Do you remember last year or 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I talked about how many coffee grinders we burned through, right? It's really true. And we probably have gone through, I don't know, Reek can tweet this, 5, 6 coffee machines in the last few years. One, we wear them out. But the second point with that is we're always looking for the perfect cup of coffee. We've been in pursuit of that, and we've been close. There's been a couple of times where we have stopped and went, man, this is getting there. This is getting really close. And a lot of you Fadernauts out there have sent us coffee from your regional roasters, right? And that's been close. But finally, it's here. Fade to Black blend coffee. And the makers of that blend are here with us tonight, Jeffrey and Juanita Chaudet. Hey, guys, how are you?
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy. How are you?
I am. I'm doing good because you know what I'm doing. I'm drinking my coffee.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Now, let's. I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to introduce you to everybody, so they knew that who was actually behind the coffee. One, but two, you have been welcomed into our family. And what a cool family it is, isn't it?
You know, Jimmy, it really is. I already feel somewhat virtually bonded to Casper, Holly, Cat Vocals, Dennis. I have my list here via Twitter. And
Right.
I'm really thrilled to make these connections.
It's a cool place to be, and I want to thank you for hanging out with us. But this is the thing, the mystery behind, when you have a coffee like this that is so good, and you hear me talk about it, but there's always a story behind that. It doesn't just fall out of the sky, and who you are, right? And there's a story behind that. So I'm going to throw this to you really quick because I have some other questions about how you get it done. But where did this love for coffee come from with the two of you?
Great question. You know, for me, I was immersed in the corporate world for years in for-profit and nonprofit education, and I was steeped into the matrix. And one day I lifted my head in parallel to watch my husband and what he was doing in the world in his realm of creative being. And I said, I've got to get out of this. And what do I do? And Jeffrey was kind of by my side building this coffee business, and he built it up to a level where we could support our family, work together. And it's about beans to help support a comfortable lifestyle. But then it became more. And it became giving back and giving to others. And one night I was in the roastery with Jeffrey, packaging up some coffee, and I was listening to your show and engaging on Twitter with the Fadernauts. And part of that show, Jimmy, you said, I really want my own coffee. I walked over to our designer and I said, let's do something here for Jimmy and the Fadernauts. And that's what birthed Fade to Black blend for the love of Jimmy and Rita and the Fadernauts. It was that simple and organic. And I'm going to let Jeffrey take it from here.
Jeffrey, how roasting is an art. Okay, there's just no other way to put it. It's an art. How much coffee have you messed up?
Interesting that you should ask that. Actually, not too many batches, as they say. I mean, I suppose I've over roasted or charred a few rounds, as they might say. But for the most part, I haven't burned out a building yet.
Right.
I haven't had the fire department called on me. I haven't done anything seriously bad with the coffee to this point. I hope I'm not jinxing myself by saying that right now either.
Right.
But no, I love the roasting process, and it's such a good fit. I mean, I got into the coffee roasting business. I mean, first and foremost, primarily is because I just didn't want to work for anybody else anymore. I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and I wanted to create a brand concept that sort of promoted this idea of free-flowing thought and free-flowing expression of self and creativity, kind of like this sort of dream coffee, and that's kind of where we came up with a lot of the imagery.
Well, and that is a really cool point, because when you go and read about the two of you, the approach that you have, not only to coffee making, but to life, is exactly what Fade to Black in our audience is about. And that's a pretty crazy thing to happen, to get this marriage together, because the two companies are almost interchangeable in their beliefs.
Well, we really noticed that too, Jimmy. I did early on. I was kind of the first fan between Jeffrey and I of aligning with the Fadernauts and listening to your show. And then I started to tap into, I'd start to look at the profiles of some of the Fadernauts, and I thought to myself, if I didn't know them through the virtual veil, I'd probably get to know the Fadernauts I'd like to go have coffee with them,
Right,
or
right.
for cocktails. It's pretty amazing, the alignment. We thought so as well. The other thing Jeff and I keyed in on was, you and Rita living life, working together, or, family focused. We kind of like those things too. And so it's amazing who comes into your life when you're open to that.
And like tonight, we like to consider this a family. And, tonight Michael Oming is on the show. He's got a new book out with Doug Rushkoff. And Michael is one of the, most talented comic book artists in the world, period. That's it. There's only a few at the level that he's at with not only talent but recognition, right? He's there. He's in the stratosphere. But he found the show, started doing artwork for us because of the love and the fader knots and all of that, but because of the thoughts and the things that we deal with here. And synchronicity or not, I don't know, be damned, right? I don't know. But he is the artist that did the artwork for the label, right? And so, and he's on the show tonight, and that's just, like I said, it's synchronicity, but that's what it's all about, and I just love it. I kick back, and I look at Fade to Black Blend, and I see Michael Oeming there, and I see another member of the family. I see you guys in it, I see Rita, and I see all of the fader knots, and here we go, I like to say it's my coffee. It's like our coffee. The fader knots have their own. Well, make no mistake, it's still my show, right? Okay, but but you know what I mean. It is such a humbling experience to go through, and I want to thank you for that. Now, you posted and sent us some pictures of, what do you call it? Your laboratory? What is that?
It's our roastery, but Jeffrey likes what you said today when we did a little pre-show talking. The Badass Blue Lab.
Yes.
And now Jeffrey's going around telling everybody that we are working in the Blue Badass Lab.
Because it is. And how did that come about? And well, tell everybody about what we're talking about, because it is pretty incredible to look at.
Absolutely. So Jeff and I hang out in our roastery, which is painted blue. Every surface, with the exception of the floor, which I call my lip gloss floor. Anyone who wants to look at that picture, shiny, beautiful, glossy gray, and then just an industrial ceiling. But it is so blue, and my beloved Jeffrey came up with that color. He really exists absolutely in the creative ethers, and it's amazing the comments we get as people walk into the space. We are in the Midwest, in Wisconsin, in an industrial warehouse, and people walk into the space and it blows them away because they do not expect to walk into this. It's almost like walking into a womb. You're immediately comforted, and people want to sit down and hang out with us. So, Jeffrey, anything else to add on that? Because you really sparked it.
No, I think you just encapsulated it perfectly stated. I loved everything you said.
Now,
and Jimmy, thank you so much for having us on your show. It's just an absolute honor, and just a shout out to my wife, my beautiful and adoring wife, who's just suffers me so graciously every day. All my whims and my spontaneous things that I like to sort of jump into. It's just great. So
and thank you. And I want to end on a couple of things. Number one, we're all of us, including you, we're all in pursuit of the perfect cup of coffee. How close do you guys think you are with River Moon?
Well, I definitely want to jump in and say, call out to the fader knots. Jimmy and Rita, you've gone back and forth a little bit, tweaking it to your preference, and we've stepped up to the plate. But now I'd like to hear from the fader knots as well, because their name is on the coffee too.
Right.
So it's that inclusive, being inclusive, and I think that's really important. Seriously, really, it puts some authenticity to it being a family, it being for you, Rita, and the Fadernauts. So let us know via Twitter, send us an email, and hopefully through that information and feedback, we will get to.
Well, let's get serious here for a second. The Fadernauts can have their own blend. They're not screwing with mine. Let's. It is so close to perfect, right? I mean, it is like right there. And if you were going to describe, you've heard me describe it, but if you were going to describe the Fade to Black blend, how would you Jeffrey? How would you describe it?
I would say that it is complex, definitely dark roast in profile, on the cusp of an Italian roast, and with a smoke roast overlay. I like to smoke the beans when they're in the cooling tray after they come out of the drum. It's kind of a roasting trick that I picked up along my travels in the roasting community.
Right.
And it gives it kind of that extra bit of, I don't know, just
smokiness.
a little bit of a bite at the end.
Now, and there's one other thing I want to touch upon in this last minute or so. You get your beans from some pretty unique areas, and can you share that really quick? How do you get your stock?
Well, we do blends, and the Fade to Black coffee is a blend of actually 3 different coffees, but the core of it is a Papua New Guinea coffee that we get through a relationship we have with a small broker here in St. Paul, not far from us, and it's one of the 2 guys that make up this coffee brokerage is a bush pilot who's kind of like a Wisconsin Indiana Jones type, and he is over in Papua New Guinea in the remotest of remote areas, and he flies up into the highlands, and the government of Papua New Guinea rents time on his plane, and they load up his plane with food and medicine. Then he flies up into the roadless, non-coffee estate plantation areas with the highland growing areas. They unload the plane with all the food and medicine, and then the villagers load up the hand-sourced Papua New Guinea coffee. And then he flies it down to port, and they ship it back to the U.S., and it comes to our roastery.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
So that's the core of the Fade to Black blend, is that direct trade Papua New Guinea coffee. And then I also use some Central American coffee in there for some more of the earthy bite notes. And then I'll also throw in a little bit of an African Tanzanian peaberry or an Ethiopian yirgacheffe to just add a dash of sweetness. So that's basically the lab trick of the trade there for that coffee.
And of course, the most important thing is my eyes pop wide open and my hands shake just a little bit, right? Which, hey, let's not play around here. That's one of the great things about coffee, and it does all of that, and it's so. I've tried to put this in the words to everybody. It is so frigging complex. Right, and I taste so many different things going on at the same time, which I so enjoy and try to figure that out. But that's one thing that you get in the Fade to Black blend. It is very, very complex, and I just want to thank you guys right now.
Oh, you're welcome.
You are very welcome.
All right. So before I let you go, everybody just go to River Moon Coffee. The links are up in Twitter right now, and just use F2B blend. That's the number 2 F2B blend, and Jeff and Juanita will give you 15% off of your order. Thank you so much. You guys are the best.
Thank you, Jimmy. Take care.
Behave and be well.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay. Good night. Happy roasting. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Juanita and Jeff, River Moon Coffee. Oh, man. Fade to Black blend. All you have to do Now, the links are up in Twitter right now, but just go to our website, click right there. F2B Blend is what you want to use. Oh, what's going on here? Okay, got it. Fade to Black Blend is the promo code. I'll be right back with Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming. Stay right there.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station where the Fade-or-Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Combat, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right. Tonight, Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming, man, I love saying those names, are here. We're going to talk about their new book, Aleister and Adolf. Tomorrow night, Holly Cook is here, and Thursday night is another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom. Oh, get ready. Buckle up, folks. Because Douglas is a writer. He's a documentarian. He's a lecturer whose work focuses on human autonomy in the digital age. He is the author of 15 best-selling books on media technology and society, including Programmed or Be Programmed, program or be programmed, present shock, and throwing rocks at the Google bus. And if you get a chance, everybody, just jump on YouTube and check out some of Douglas's lectures on that. Truly amazing. He has made such award-winning PBS frontline documentaries as Generation Lake, Merchants of Cool, and The Persuaders. And he is the author of the graphic novels, including Testament and his latest, Aleister and Adolf. Rushkoff is the recipient of the Marshall McLuhan Award for his book Coercion, the Jacques Ellul Award for his documentary of the Merchants of Cool, and the Neil Postman Award for career achievement and public intellectual activity. Named one of the world's 10 most influential intellectuals by MIT, he is responsible for originating such concepts as virtual media, social currency, and digital natives. Today, Dr. Rushkoff serves as professor of media theory and digital economics at CUNY Queens, where he recently founded the Laboratory for Digital Humanism and hosts its Team Human podcast. And if you think that's a mouthful, I only got halfway through. Michael Oeming began his career in comics at the age of 14. His first big break was the inker on Daredevil, and shortly after as the penciler inker on DC's version of Judge Dredd. Then Foot Soldiers at Dark Horse Comics, and of course Bulletproof Monk at Image, which became a film. He was nominated for an Eisner for his work on the long-running Powers with Brian Bendis, Brian being another guest on this show at one point. And other notable titles include Sit Down and Listen, Spider-Man, The Avengers, Batman, Superman, and his love of mythology, which is Thor, Hammer of the Gods. And, of course, Mice Templar, my favorite, with Brian J.L. Glass, the one and only. Along with his wife, Taki Soma, he also does Rapture, Synergy, and the United States of Murder Incorporated, written by Bendis. All right, I'm going to jump straight into this. Of course, Michael's website is michaelavonoeming.com. And Douglas's is rushkoff.com. And I would like to welcome to the show Douglas Rushkoff, and back again with us, Michael Avon Oeming. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Douglas.
Douglas, that's a pretty intimidating bio, and especially for a guy like me, right? And but that's when you speak, people listen, and that's a responsibility. How do you deal with that?
Well, I guess first, I try to have real facts.
Right. That helps. Yes.
And, what I'm trying to do usually when I talk is, get people to suppose, just to try on another way of looking at things. And usually it works. I'm kind of nice enough or gentle enough to get them to think in new ways. But I did a talk last year. I was talking about the origins of money and how central currency is extractive and all. And some German banker stood up at the end of my talk and he said, Mr. Rushkoff, what is your background? And I thought for a minute I could run through my resume, but I turned around and I looked at the curtain behind me and I said, looks kind of blue.
Right. Right. And see, and that is directly to my point. And Michael and I talked about you about this behind your back, which is this. You are you're educated, you're a professor, you have a doctor, you've got all of that in a CV to back you up. But you come across as one of us, one of the people. You're not intimidating, and that in turn allows us, less educated folks, to absorb it and not be intimidated by you, and then we walk away feeling smarter because you weren't talking down to us. And
that's sweet. But the other thing is, the whole trick on staying on the normal side, it's not being able to speak normally. It's not letting, getting a doctorate indoctrinate you.
Right.
All those credentials and getting credentials is really about losing your autonomy, losing your ability to think. And I managed to go through it slowly enough or strangely enough not to get, programmed by it.
And there's one other thing. I feel that you speak for us, right? You're one of us. You're not one of them, although you could be, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why I call it Team Human. I'm on the team of the humans, and people having choice and autonomy and the ability to move through their lives as thinking sentient beings. And, as long as you keep that as your primary motive, it's kind of easy to stay on the people side of things.
And before we get to Aleister and Adolf, which is fascinating, and that's going to fill up the entire show, but I've got to address a couple of things, and we sort of talked about this before the show briefly, but I'm going to say this in a broad term. Since 1995, probably since AOL, right, kind of kicked off and allowed this freedom of expression and freedom of speech and hiding behind a keyboard and a monitor and probably saying things that you would never say in public and so forth. But since then, we've really screwed ourselves up, right? I mean, we have gone off the rails. What happened?
Well, I mean, as I see it, what happened was, the late 80s, early 90s saw the emergence of this tremendously powerful peer-to-peer technology. Computer networks and the internet and home computers even in terms of production. And instead of really allowing that renaissance in human connection to occur, the folks at places like Wired magazine saw in the internet a new way to keep corporate capitalism and the stock exchange going. And the internet really became the poster child for the growth-based economy. And companies like, whether it's Facebook and Google, that could have been connecting companies, ended up really just being these giant piles of capital that have to grow. And the way that they do that is by marketing our attention and marketing our data, and ultimately preventing the internet from being a tool of solidarity and instead using it to really hyper individualize everybody's experience of life so that you get your algorithmically programmed Facebook feed, you get the search results from Google that Google thinks you will click on, and you're pushed further and further into almost a caricature of yourself, and you become less aware of other people and your connection to them. And as that happens, we become more selfish, we become more crazy, we become more disconnected, we become more extreme versions of ourselves politically and spiritually. And it's a heck of a lot harder to just look other people in the eye and realize that we're all on the same team here.
It's strange how it grew organically, and we wanted that too. That was the thing, the freedom of it, and it sucked us in, and it changed us, right? It's a bizarre thing to witness in real time, and I don't know how we can get the humanity back in human beings, right? I don't know if we've gone too far. And I wanted
we may have. I think we can. If we start really treasuring the time we have together, I think a lot of people are getting nauseated by all of these devices and the way that they work. We're becoming more aware that these are applications that come out of the captology lab at Stanford University. And they're not really designed to enhance your experience. They're designed to trigger your most Pavlovian basic impulses, and that's just not a pleasant place to live.
Yeah, and Jobs had a really unique marketing approach to that. It's part of you, right?
Yeah,
it's part of you, and it worked. And you're absolutely right, Pavlovian.
Definitely, and it dovetailed just so perfectly with this sort of California self-actualization, self-improvement culture.
Totally.
And people didn't realize that all of that self leads to selfishness and isolation.
Yeah, like Michael Oeming, totally selfish. and
totally
there's
isolated.
You are isolated right now. And speaking of Michael, this is another unique thing that, and I still can't figure this out. Michael is an artist. He creates something, and he creates a product that is monetized and is sold. It's a physical thing, right? It's
if I'm lucky.
If you're lucky, right? And you can touch it, you can feel it, and he's creating it, and then that is part of the market economy that makes sense, right? And then you have the flip side of Michael, which is the internet, which is money and growth based on nothing. It's based on nothing. There's no manufacturing. And you have all of the United States and all of these jobs that are created, but you don't have output. You're not manufacturing. You're not trading goods. And that's the part that I can't. The internet bubble, it came and bit us so quickly. And I said, well, wait a minute. How is it possible that somebody can create a website in their garage, living with their mom, spend no money on it, and then get a market cap of $5 billion and do an IPO? That money comes from somewhere. It's being removed from another part of the economy and then put in here, but there's nothing coming out on the other side. I'm still confused today at 2016 as I was in 1998. Right? Am I wrong in looking at the world like this?
Well, I don't think you're wrong in looking at the world like that. I mean, that's what my last book was about, that throwing rocks at the Google bus, how these companies are, purely extractive, that, Amazon didn't help the book industry. It monopolized the book industry so it could leverage that monopoly into another. Uber doesn't create a driving economy. It kills a taxi driving economy and creates unsustainable jobs. So, these companies, though, they don't need to actually have real revenue the way that you would think about, like a company makes money and then reinvests it or something. The product of these companies is not their service, it's their stock. So it really doesn't make sense in some ways for them to make money. All they really want to do is destroy markets, is disrupt. It's not what economists call creative destruction, where one industry comes in and replaces another one. It's really just destructive destruction. It goes and destroys markets, but eventually it has to stop. It can't go on forever or there's no economy left.
Yeah, when anything fails like that from Palo Alto, I'm just not surprised. Yeah. Because it's something that doesn't make sense. It works. It works temporarily, but in the long run, it just doesn't make sense it just doesn't make any sense. So how can it last, and how can it continue to sustain itself? I don't have
the saddest part is that the kinds of companies that do make sense, like a company like Twitter, which I think is a great little
Absolutely,
app.
right.
That company makes $2 billion a year in revenue, and it's considered an abject failure by Wall Street and its investors who wanted to make 100 times their initial investment. So companies that actually do something, well, those are the ones that are killed, because they're not satisfying the bigger need, the underlying operating system of the digital economy, which is really just Wall Street.
I'll tell you a funny story. It's been told a lot, but you'll love this. Back when Twitter first launched, like the first month or two, I'm sitting on a park bench in Santa Monica on the beach with Jack Dorsey, right? And we're sitting there, and I go, dude, I don't get it, man. Right? And he goes, no, it's this. And then I'm like, man, okay. And he goes, okay, create a profile. And start opening an account, and I did. And the next day, we're sitting on the same park bench, and we're talking. I go, okay, now what do I do? And I'm serious about that, right? And I'm like, Jack, this ain't gonna work, man. No, you don't have the video. It's gonna be big, man. It's gonna be big. And he followed 100 people back then, and he followed me, and I followed him. And it was that long ago, and here it is today. I told him it was a bad idea. I guess I'm wrong. But now I get Twitter, and you're absolutely right. It's a platform that actually works, and it does something for you, and you get something back.
Right, exactly. And it's not really taking so much from you. It's not all thick and horrible like Facebook, but that's, part of the reason it's
Did you
not
say
growing.
thick and horrible? Can I use that?
Facebook, you do something, you don't know quite really what's happening and where
Right.
it's going and who's going to read it and who's not. And did you promote your post so you could reach all your followers or not? And are they using your identity to do something else? It's just like, it's a very thick, opaque black box kind of a platform. On Twitter, I know what's going to end up in my feed, the stuff that I subscribe to, period.
Right. And even that seems to be changing, and I hope they don't. I hope they don't pollute it any further. Now, hey, Michael, how you doing?
Hey, man, I'm just fascinated listening in.
Well, I have to ask how the two of you hooked up, because this partnership here on this book seems nearly perfect. Who found who first?
Well, we'd have to thank our editor at Dark Horse Comics. That would be Daniel Chabone. He and some of the other editors there at Dark Horse knew that, I'm into this kind of stuff. I did a series called The Victories, which touched on Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley and some other weird occult stuff and how that tied into NASA and, just all the stuff I learned from listening to your show. So when Douglas... I'm not sure if Douglas approached Dark Horse, or I'm not exactly sure how Douglas got involved with Dark Horse, but basically they said, Mike's probably busy, but let's ask him about this. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'm in. This is amazing. This is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime chance to take the subject matter and then tell it in such a concise way. And it was in black and white, which I've always wanted to do. I haven't had a chance to work in heavy black and white in a really long time. So I was just really excited, and there was a little bit of a getting to know you phase with Douglas, and I realized, okay, so he's, so when you work with somebody and you're going to work with them for about a year, you have to make sure that you like them, right?
Right.
So a little bit of back and forth with Douglas. I was like, oh my God, this guy's a genius. And I was looking back at his work, and some of it I was already familiar with and didn't really, kind of connect the two. And that's basically how it happened. And we just hit it off really well, and had a great relationship all through creating this, and it was just kind of too easy. I wish it was more interesting than that, but really it was really easy and had a lot to do with our editors just knowing how to put a team together.
But there is a backstory that Mike doesn't know, which is that I originally wrote this book in 2012, and it was with Sierra Hahn, the original editor there. I was going to do it at Vertigo, and Vertigo was kind of dying at the time, and the editor there said, just go to Dark Horse, do it with Sierra. So I was doing it with her, and we had not one, not two, but 3 artists before Mike that were people that Sierra knew or that we found through Europe, and bizarre tragedies happened to all 3 of them. And after the 3rd one, I thought maybe because of the Crowley thing, maybe this book is cursed. We shouldn't be doing it. Something bad. But then I saw Mike's picture, and he looked so strong. He's strong, American, smiling. He's muscular.
Right.
He's this gorgeous wife. And I thought, this guy's got the strength. He will not be hurt by this.
But see, you should have picked an artist you didn't like. And then just tested the waters,
it was,
right?
We'll get into this as we talk more about it, but I did have, I don't want to say doubts, but the subject matter is really, really heavy.
Let me before we head to this break, let me ask Douglas about that. I know Mike's background. Mike found me because he's insane, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's that. But Doug, you come from you teach finance, you teach world currency, you teach the perils of the internet and the Silicon Valley and international politics and the Fed. That's you. You're not supposed to know about this stuff. So are you coming out of the closet? Have you been researching the esoteric and conspiracy theory and just not really talked about it before? Or on top of that, at MIT,
MIT, would you... ways. I mean, I got introduced to computers and technology by Timothy Leary, in LA in the late '80s. So my whole perspective on this world really came through the psychedelic airs of Crowley's occult universe. And that's my belief. I mean, I look at money and computers and banks and politics. I look at it all as sigil magic, performed by one institution or another, whether they know it's what they're doing or not.
Interesting. Well, would you lecture at a college about this?
Oh, I do.
Really?
I do. Yeah. I mean, you can't really move through a world as programmed as ours, with as many influence techniques being used on you, with as many psychological tricks going on, without understanding. Then you've got to understand the history of propaganda and mind control, where it really comes from, so you can see, these are techniques that were developed by real people at real times. The real question still, and the question of the book is, what is magic finally? Is magic magic, or is magic convincing the other people that your magic works enough that they do what you want?
Okay, but what about your partners out there in the educational system? And I'm sure that they would come up to you and go, okay, viral media, you sold me on that. Social currency, I'm there. Okay, you got me. But the esoteric and conspiracy theory and the cabal and Aleister Crowley and Adolf, now we're stretching here, Douglas. We need to have a talk.
Well, we are, we're not. I mean, luckily, I've only been in academia for 2 years, and I'm teaching at a city college in part so I could be with the people, instead of in an elite ivory tower where they might look funny at this. But no, I mean, you don't write about this stuff in your doctoral dissertation, or at least not in this way. But once you get your tenure, which I did, then you can be as honest as you want about what's going on. And if that means, believing that understanding Wilhelm Reich and Tesla is more important than Freud and Edison, then so be it.
Wow. Holy crap.
There you go.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Okay.
and Jimmy, the thing is, if any other scholars do question him on this stuff, a lot of it is just history. This isn't supposition. I mean, there is supposition in here, from, maybe he went here or did this. But, Operation Paperclip, we took in these Nazis, and we can trace their history. We know where they went after we hired them, what companies they worked for, what institutions they influenced. It's not that hard to find. It's just people don't want to face it, so they pretend like it never happened.
Hey, Doug, we're going to head to a break here, but this is probably a yes or no question for you. Do you know who the Area 51 caller is? Do you know that mythology?
I know the mythology, but I do not know who the caller is.
You're okay. All right, Michael, after the break, we're going to discuss this for just 5 minutes, but let's blow Doug's mind. Don't tell him anything during the break. Because somebody just tweeted, Deuce Guy just tweeted, Jimmy, you have to ask Michael about the part he played with the Area 51 caller. And you know what? So let's Douglas is like, what are they talking about? Well, Douglas, hold on to your hat, man. You're going to hear about this briefly after the break, and then we'll jump into Aleister and Adolf. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Michael Avon Oeming and Douglas Rushkoff. We are discussing their book, Aleister and Adolf. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Doug at Rushkoff, and of course, Michael at Oeming on Twitter. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The
station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Kat Deely, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Angioprim can unclog blocked arteries and improve blood flow in all parts of your body. Angioprim is oral chelation. Easy, simple, liquid oral chelation. You take it with juice before breakfast and forget about it. Angioprim works fast, unlike old-fashioned chelation that takes hours. Just log on to angioprim.com. That's Angioprim, ANGIOPRIM, angioprim.com. Angioprim users say they have more energy, more strength, more endurance. Increased circulation and blood flow will make all your body parts work better. Log on to angioprim.com to get more information on how you can get started and start feeling better, having fun, and doing more again. Lots more. Talk to a trained Angioprim consultant. Call Angioprim toll-free at 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221. Or log on for complete information. Angioprim.com. That's Angioprim.com. Find out how Angioprim can work for you. Get the facts about Angioprim at Angioprim.com.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring two Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hard shell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The two full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Tonight, our guests, Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming, we are discussing their new book, Aleister and Adolf. And before we get to that, Doug, before the break, I had mentioned the Area 51 caller. Now, for anybody out there left on planet Earth that doesn't know what we're talking about, the Area 51 caller happened 19 years ago now that I think about it, on Art Bell on Coast to Coast. And a caller called in, said he was an employee of Area 51. He escaped. He had lost his mind. He was frantic. And that aliens were real and they're going to take over and it's bad and so forth. Then the call drops. Some other audio plays. Art comes back on the show and says, "Did everybody hear that? That was freaky? That was real." And then Art took a bunch of calls about what the callers had heard. Well, I'll say this: the call was not an employee of Area 51. It was an act, and. It was an act, and I know the two guys that were involved in putting on this charade that has now moved on to urban legend beyond the thought or words of urban legend. And there are tens of millions of people out there that still insist that the call was real. I have been dealing with this now, as Michael knows, for a couple of years. because we reenacted that call with the real caller on this show. And now that has gone on to mythic levels where I'm part of this and I'm not. That the guy that called in on the show, I'm going to let Michael tell the story here in a second, was not the real guy, which he was, and that the call was still real. And what we did on the show was not real, and that I was making fun of a very serious situation. And I cannot convince the world, no matter what I do, that what we have presented is the truth. Now, Douglas, you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about. Well, Michael Avon Oeming is one of the perps behind the Area 51 caller. So, Michael, tell your story.
All right. Well, let's be clear. Let's put up a couple of facts real quick. One, I wasn't directly involved. I was just listening. As Brian Glass and I are close friends and longtime collaborators. And way back in the early 90s, mid 90s, we were listening we were working on this book called Ship of Fools together. And, we were listening to Art Bell, and he had those open lines. And people would call in. Some people were trying to be, I guess maybe they're real whistleblowers.
Let me jump in. Doug, are you tripping right now?
No, I'm amazed, but
right, okay.
So other people are putting on an act. Brian was going to call completely on his own. Usually I'm up listening, but I had actually missed that night. I just had this recorder going on, and it was going to be theater. He wasn't out to fool anybody. I want to make that super, super clear. The idea was that he was going to say he was this Area 51 caller on the run. And he was going to tie in the Illuminati to it because in our comic book, Ship of Fools, we have something called the Jet Black Illuminati. It was all supposed to sort of tie into the book, not be like an obvious promotion in any way, but theater. And he was going to, after crashing the stuff, just kind of come out and say that this was a piece of theater brought to you by Brian Glass.
Right. It was scripted, right?
Yeah,
it was thought out.
Complete fun and in total transparency. Then it gets weird. Because as Brian says these certain things, and there's certain sort of keywords in conspiracy circles, especially back then, when you're talking about like FEMA and camps and stuff like that, that was all part of his rant that the aliens weren't really aliens, and there were these safe zones, and these disasters were coming, and this is all, pre Y2K and all that, right? And as he kind of hits these keywords and hits this crescendo where he's about to take his cape off and take a bow, I'm like, ha-ha! The line goes dead, and the line doesn't just go dead. Art goes off the air for like 10, 15 minutes.
The satellite feed, right?
Yeah, the satellite loses connection. So if anybody's thinking that Art was like, oh, this is a great time to play some theater and cut it off, you don't do that for 10, 15 minutes. You do that for how long can you go with dead air before you panic?
Right, 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So this is 10 to 15 minutes.
Right.
So, and this has never happened before. And Brian was never really able to prove to Art, even though he had phone records and everything, that he was the guy because, of course, 1,000 other dudes called in and said, I'm the Area 51 caller, and this is what I'm really trying to say. And poor Brian is left there holding the bag for 17 years until we get to come onto your show. And meanwhile, all this insane stuff happening, they sample his voice on a Tool album.
Right.
I forget which album it is, but it's a whole song of my friend Brian flipping out about aliens and just like weird guitar music and stuff. The YouTube videos end up, 5 million hits or some crazy stuff. Meanwhile, Brian and I are just trying to put out our comics and get by on, what comics like.
Yeah, how old were you two, once again, but how old were you two when this happened?
Oh, I must have been like 23, 24. I'm not even sure if my son was born yet at that point. So I was pretty young, and Brian would have been like in his early 30s.
Right.
And again, this was not, and I know that and this is really, if Brian's listening or will listen in the future, I know this has caused him actually a lot of pain. Nothing too heavy, but the fact that this crazy thing that he did blew up into these giant proportions becomes part of this sort of epic history in a way that he can never prove. Even right now, I'm sure people are saying this is disinformation.
Yeah, and Doug,
and you got it now.
Right. So Doug, Brian agrees. I mean, we talk, and the second I heard his voice, I was like, dude, it is you, right? And he's like, yeah, it's me. And I said, let's recreate it, and I'll give you an opportunity. Let's do it. Let's freak everybody out. And then we'll drop the call. We'll do all of that. We'll do our best Orson Welles thing on this. And we did. And then come on, introduce yourself to the world, and then tell the story. Apologize if you want or not or whatever. Just I'll give you the platform to just set the record straight. And we did. We went through, and he's... he goes through his panic. I'm back. 17 years I've been on the run, man, but they're still following me. And he does the whole thing. And then it was perfect. And then we drop the call, and I run what did I run? I ran
Monty Python, right?
Monty Python music, right?
Right.
And then I come back on, and I go, man, the call dropped. And I said, did everybody hear what was, and my phone lines lit up. Dude, it was Area 51 caller, man. It was Area 51 caller, man. It was Area. And then I said, okay, everybody, it wasn't the Area 51 caller, but it was. And this is Brian J.L. Glass. And he comes on and lays his story out, tells everybody exactly how he did it. And that wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
It's still they. You know what? I wanted the call to be real. I did. I really did. It'd be great if, but it wasn't, and we've never been able to. I want to say this correctly because there are people out there that believe, right, and no matter what you tell them, you're not going to change their mind on it. But we presented it the best and the most honest way that we could, and now here we are.
But even for those people like us who are a little disappointed that this particular subject or this thing wasn't necessarily real, a very real thing happened because of it. It's like some old movie about somebody getting too close to says the wrong thing on the radio, and then they think that they're really in trouble and stuff. It was as if Brian said something too close to the truth.
Right.
Because the satellite link was pulled, and Art can't do that. And no broadcaster in their sane mind is going to have 10 minutes of empty radio. And all of that with the Area 51 caller, this kind of thing goes on today too as well. And Douglas, when you what is causing? Let's get into some social phenomena right now, and we'll get back to Aleister and Adolf. What causes this social phenomena today with these fake news sites, semi-fake news sites, but the public out there reads it and they don't vet what they are reading. They won't go to another source. It's so cleverly written and so well done that they'll stop right there and believe what they are saying. And now we have the public flipping out, right? The media is part of this problem, but they don't vet their own news sources today. And I'm talking about the public.
What your story though, what it demonstrates so aptly is that this is a space of poetry, in some sense, more than it is a space of fact. It was even, Andrew Breitbart, of all people. It's a great quote where he says, politics is downstream of culture. And that's another way of saying facts are downstream of feelings and perception and sort of your psychic set. So if you're feeling a certain way, what the internet does, what this tag cloud of facts and pseudo facts does, is it lets you find the fact that suits your perspective, your worldview. And that's something that we always do anyway. We try to find the facts that most closely match how we see the world. And now on the net, it's just so much easier to do it without being contradicted by the authorities, and on some levels that's really powerful because, okay, we're going to start thinking for ourselves. But we have so little practice doing that it's really, really easy to go down a rabbit hole and then constantly get reinforcement for what you're believing down there.
Why has it become so easy for the moral sensibility that is behind messing with people's minds, right? And there are people out there right now making money off of a fake news website that is playing with, driving people to the edge of serious psychosis, right?
Well, this is
but they're okay
what
with it.
Wired magazine, what they realized in the 90s, and they published a cover, called The Attention Economy. And what they realized was that now that we have the net, we have basically infinite real estate. It's not like the real world where you have to have a certain amount of money to get a piece of land to build your factory. That the real estate is essentially free. And the only thing that's valuable, the only thing that's limited is human attention. And they used to talk about human attention in terms of eyeball hours. But really what they meant was we're living in an attention economy. So the way you make money is by getting attention. And very often you're going to get better attention with a fake fact than a real one. It's not a matter of you don't make your money by being right and having some good reputation. Nobody has a front page on their news site anymore anyway that's worth anything. Everybody gets to stories through social media. They go in the back door, the side door, they go in laterally. So if discovery is what leads to attention, and attention is what leads to money, then the way people discover now is by following their impulse rather than, going to the front page of the New York Times.
Well, how do we, without losing sight of the First Amendment, right, and not letting that treasured part of our world, go away, but do we need some kind of ethics police to jump in here and try, or is it just too broad? I don't know, but
well, ethics police is kind of like fighting bacteria with antibiotics. You're going to wipe them each one out. My preferred method for dealing with illness is to increase the immune capacity, the immunity of the host organism, and that's us.
Right.
So really what we're talking about is how do you prevent getting infected by a media virus, especially if that virus is untrue and is going to kind of replicate as bad thinking. And the way to do that is to learn how to read, learn how to navigate this space, learn how to tell what's real from what's not. And that's a matter of training and education. That's why I write books. That's why, especially ones called things like Program or Be Programmed. If you don't understand how the world in which you're operating is fabricated, then you're going to be much more the used than the user.
I started saying a couple of years ago on this show, take the news that you read. This is how I read the news. I don't care what website you're on, what newspaper you're reading, what you're watching on TV. I don't care what it is. Whatever they say or whatever you read, whatever it is, flip it over 180 degrees and now read it, and you're probably closer to the truth. And
that's what William Burroughs used to take the front page of the New York Times, and he did what's called cut up on it, where he cut up every word and then rearranged it randomly. And then he would say, now let's see what the paper really says.
Right. And how do we get here with that? And I don't understand where I think that we had a certain amount of honesty that we took for granted when Time Magazine came in the mail, right, every week. And you just took it as gospel, right? And we had 3 or 4 channels on TV, and we felt like things were being honest, at least that they were fighting the system and trying to get us through. And now it's caution thrown to, they don't care.
Yeah.
Well, I think some people cared before, but a lot of what we saw was just as incorrect. Walter Cronkite ending the Vietnam War because he, witnessed something that wasn't exactly true. The Gulf of Tonkin, all the false flag attacks. I mean, the New York Times telling us about the weapons of mass destruction and arguing to go to the Gulf War with bad facts. It still happens. It might not be quite as flagrant, but in some ways, this flagrant stuff, it's so obvious that you would think over time it disempowers itself, that we can see it kind of for what it is. And I think more people are questioning things. It's part of why they're skidding out into these, really dark corners. It's because they don't really trust the things that they're reading. It's tricky, but that's why people have to, ideally, the more time you spend in the real world with real people pursuing genuine things, the less easily thrown you are by a so-called fact you'll see in social media.
Is this part of the idea behind Aleister and Adolf?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I was really the main argument of Aleister and Adolf, because there's a framing story around it about a young, web designer in the mid-90s. The premise is that we are migrating from one world into another. And in this next world, this cyber world that we're going into, this net world, corporations are really more powerful than we are. This is their home turf. This is an abstracted realm. It's not real. And if it's abstracted, then it's, utterly vulnerable to magic, to control of that sort of sigil nature. You're wandering around out there and you look at brands for a sense of grounding, but the moment that we transition from our world into a digital world is when corporations really have equal essence to us. At least we have bodies. We're corporeal. Corporations are not, in spite of the name. They're not human. They don't exist. But the internet kind of gives them bodies. It gives them a virtual existence in a way that they've never had it before.
Right.
And so I was really looking at what happens when you take corporations, which are already sigils, these logos, these brand identities. That's sigil magic. It's charged with advertising, charged with mythology.
Symbolism. Right.
When those things migrate into cyberspace, what happens? And I'm arguing they become alive.
And the way that, again, I'm going to use your words here, the way that it's framed here is Crowley fights, or wants to, I should say, Hitler, not with physical weapons. I want to word this right. Am I right in saying it like that?
Yeah, that, Crowley was involved in this is just true. He was involved in a British intelligence operation to fight Hitler with magic, and it's really complicated because who believes in magic there and who doesn't, and the question is really whether Crowley was doing magic, or whether he was just psyching Hitler out. In other words, if Hitler believes in magic, can you just do things that then freak him out to the point where where he's more vulnerable?
And wasn't he actually planning some of his war strategies around astrology and occult, symbols and like where the moon was going and all that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was around 1935 that Himmler, he took control of something called the Office of Ancestral Research, which was really the SS Occult Bureau. And he created something instead called the Witchcraft Special Commission. And the idea was they would recover the lost wisdom of the German folk, and Goebbels formed this special section to exploit astrology and metaphysics and occultism, originally because they thought that the Americans and the English believed in astrology and metaphysics and occultism, and that if Americans and British thought, oh no, the Germans are using this stuff, that it would freak us out. But indeed, Hitler and his used Hess, actually, Rudolf Hess a bit, but he used occultists and star charts to plan his military strategies. So what Crowley got the great idea, Crowley actually and Ian Fleming, the guy who wrote the James Bond stories, they got the idea about what if we created false star charts and sent them through the people that we know to Hitler, so that Hitler will now be making his war decisions based on star charts that we gave him. So they would know what dates he's going to do things and what kinds of strategies he's going to take.
Genius.
Yeah, it's clever.
Genius.
It's clever, but it's one of the first kind of examples of what the way corporate espionage works now, where you give the other guy fake plans, or you replace Toyota's battery plan with something else, and GM, haha, we got 6 months on them. It's that kind of work. But Hitler was definitely a believer in magic. It's just that his magic, as I try to point out in the book, is a real black magic. Crowley was fascinated with Hitler. When he met him a bunch of times, and he has these great quotes. I put him in the book. He says, I've never met someone so demonic as Herr Hitler. Why do you think I spend so much time with him? And when he bade me, I can tell you only the universe can prevail against Hitler, but the universe, meaning God, doesn't seem to be interested. So he was very interested in him. But Crowley's magic, I believe, Crowley was not a black magician. He always argued that he didn't do black magic. He did, white magic or sigil magic, where Hitler charged his sigils very differently from the way a chaos magician might today. Chaos magician now might, masturbate or meditate or write poetry or, use letters and move them around. Hitler charged his sigil, which was the Nazi swastika. He charged his sigil by burning people. It was that's what the camps were about. It made no logistical public relations sense for the Nazis to be burning all these people, but it made sense to Hitler when he was thinking of it in terms of trying to charge his sigil with magic energy, with magic power. And that was the sort of the sigil magic that Crowley wanted to break. So it was Crowley who came up with the famous Vias for Victory sign that he got it all the way to Winston Churchill through Fleming. And he used the sign because the idea was that sign. I mean, that V sign, is the female and the moon. And it was all these ideas were really packed into that Vias for Victory idea. And he wrote these poems and created these very strange symbols that were supposed to embody the magic of that. And when it came time, he didn't want anyone to know it was him who did it, because he thought it would undermine the credibility of the sign with the British people if they knew it came from him rather than from Churchill himself. So, for all of the talk of Crowley being this, huge egomaniac, he was actually, working for the crown very anonymously.
The other thing for me is probably a more dangerous element of this is that Hitler believed it. Whether it was effective or real, it doesn't matter. He believed in magic, and that's why he was sending, his people out around the world looking for these, biblical artifacts or, the Ark or whatever it was. But that symbolism coming back would make, just like any team, rah-rah team, stronger because the belief is there. And that's the more frightening thing for me.
Well, exactly. I mean, you really can't – it's very, very hard to prove magic working on that magical level. But it's really easy to prove magic working as a psych out.
That's right. Exactly. Let's take we got to take a break right here. And we're going to continue this when we come back. And also, I've got to ask Mike, how fun was it to do this, as far as artwork go, when this is exactly what you love? It must have been great. But we'll hear from Michael right after this. It's Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Douglas Rushkoff, Michael Avon Oeming. I'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Work with your doctor when taking medications. Make Protovite part of your healthy lifestyle.
HealthForLiberty.com is your source for Protovite, a powerful nutritional supplement that's a true breakthrough for your health. Poor digestion makes it nearly impossible to absorb the nutrition your body needs. Protovite is a liquid multi-nutrient formula with patent-pending absorption technology and the highest quality ingredients to nourish every cell in your body.
My name is Sandra White. 6 weeks ago, when I started taking Protovite, I was on 14 medications, from everything for blood pressure to fibromyalgia. In the first 10 days, my blood sugar dropped 50 points, and my fibromyalgia pain is gone. And so was 12 of the 14 medications that I was taking. I'm 66, living life and loving it.
Go to healthforliberty.com right now. That's healthforliberty.com.
Thank you, Protovite, for giving my life back.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Our guests tonight, Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming. We're talking about their new book, Aleister and Adolf. Want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, the one and only Holly Cook is here. Thursday night, another Fader night, open lines with John Rappaport and his No More Fake newsroom. Doug, I wanted to ask you, now that you know Michael like you do, and you've seen, he's just one of the best. But he's the perfect choice for this project, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I got the new editor, Dan Chabon, at Dark Horse, he emailed me right away the links to the sites of 10 different artists that he wanted to ask to do it. And as soon as I saw Mike's, it was like second on the list. I was like, oh, my God, this is the guy. And it's the guy really for two reasons. One is the ability to draw the environments, these accurate but enveloping environments. The understanding that when you move from one place to another, you're moving into a different world, and being willing to do that, within the same book. But the second thing, the most important, was the acting. When you're finding an artist, it's kind of like casting a movie. You're going to get all these characters. And what he can do that's special is, without, making these kind of overwrought character sketches, he can kind of capture an emotion in just a few lines. And in a book like this, where the people's emotions are really complicated, they have multiple agendas running at the same time. It was the ability to see these faces that, okay, this face could mean this, and it could mean that, and it looks real. That's just, it's a kind of a clarity of focus. The ability to act through your pen that just almost nobody has.
Jimmy, just so you know, I wrote all of that for Douglas to say.
Yeah, I know, right?
Perfectly. I really appreciate it.
I was watching it. I was watching the text go by here on the screen.
I appreciate it.
And Doug, have you ever seen him draw? Have you ever seen him like work?
On YouTube.
Is that the most insane? Yeah, it is just. I mean, it's very humbling. You know, we've all wanted to draw comics. You know, we all do. You know, we all suck at it. And you watch Mike, and he's just he makes it look so easy. It's just.
Well, it's literally the only thing I can do, as you could attest when you were trying to get me to fix my microphone. Yeah. And you're like, it's in the settings. It says sounds.
Right,
like,
right.
I don't know.
Well, you know, and so Michael, you know, with things like the combination of Powers and Mice Templar, right? Your mind is where it is, and then you get this project. It's like perfect. I mean, how fun was it to do?
It was amazing because ever since I was a kid, I was interested in this stuff. I mean, I could blame a lot of it on my mother, who always had an interest in strange and unusual things. We used to watch In Search of together and Doctor Who and just, you know, anything crazy and interesting, right? And I remember back in the early 80s on, like, I don't know what show. It was probably like Maury Povich or something. There was that satanic panic during the early mid-80s.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a special about how your household products have occult messaging on it. You're spraying Satan inside of your house every time you clean with this product or that product or whatever. I think it was like Procter & Gamble or something. And sure enough, you go into your sink and you look like, oh, it's a moon with 13 stars. And you're like all freaked out and stuff.
Right.
So it was like a sort of an early indication of things to come later about images and iconography. And even in my own work, I like to try and keep things as sort of simple and as iconic as possible, so the second you look at it, you know exactly what it is, versus a lot of the other art out there, which is in many ways much superior to mine, but it's very, very detailed, and you have to kind of get absorbed into it to really get all the details. I like to keep it really simple, like, I'm not going to say it's sigil magic at all, but like, you know, a simple symbol that you can see right away, you know exactly what it is. So I think even from early on, there was something in my mind saying, you know, to keep things simple. And you look at these logos, and they're kind of doing the same thing, kind of transferring an idea as simply and quickly as possible. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of them know that they are occult symbols that they're using, or variations of occult symbols. One of the things that happened to me after working on this, Douglas and I talked a lot about, you know, where did the Nazis go afterwards? You know, There's a saying, I forget which guy says it, that the Nazis, I think it was Peter Levenda, says the Nazis didn't lose the war. We just hired them. And it's largely true. And the way that they kind of seeped into our culture, and a lot of it is in the corporations, and these corporations are using, I'm not going to call anybody out because I like having a life, but, you know, a lot of them are using variations on the swastika.
Well, that I wanted to ask.
Book, I see it everywhere.
Right. I wanted to ask you about that directly. When you're drawing, it's one thing to write about it for Douglas, right? But for you to illustrate and to draw some of this, you know, Nazi propaganda in symbolism, what is that like as an artist? Is it difficult to do? Because it is what it is, right?
Sure. Well, like the stuff that we're kind of used to seeing, the swastikas and the other symbols and the death head stuff, you know, we're kind of used to seeing that. Unfortunately, you know, if you've been lucky enough to be educated well, you've seen the films and the footage of what happened at the camps. But even there, you're used to seeing certain images kind of played over and over again, where it kind of really messed with my head, and it was really, really honestly difficult. I mean, I went through a couple days of I was in a dark hole of like depression, and it's I guess maybe this is how sigil stuff works,
right?
Is it gets in your head, right? So like I had to look into some of the worst stuff that they were doing. There's sections in the books about the Nazis were trying to figure out how to replace limbs on soldiers that had been blown off. So like this is something I'd never known about, but you know they would take women and kids and chop off their legs and try to, you know, replace them. Not always even with human parts, and to see if it would work. And there's these photos of vats of legs, you know, And there was some other stuff that's in the book that was just some of the darkest stuff that they did that, I thought I was fairly well educated on this. But some of it is so twisted, I don't know how well it was reported on, because it's just, you hear something, you almost don't believe it. That stuff was super hard. And, I kind of have this feeling that, getting back to the Crowley part, the magic stuff, is heavily psychological. Because like I said, afterwards, for a while, all I saw was swastikas and different versions of swastikas on
everything. It's everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm not sure when it was intended to be or not anymore. And that's part of magic, I guess, is it gets into your head.
And for you, Doug, doing the research, man, you've got to do the research, which means you have to look at the images, you have to look at the symbols and the symbology, you have to read and do this research. It ain't easy.
Yeah, but it any kind of horror that I might have is more than matched by the sense of, I found it, I understand it, this is true. So if I'm going to write a book where I'm suggesting that, and it doesn't really give too much away because the storyteller is the head of one of the big original advertising agencies in America. But when I'm suggesting that, in a sense, the Nazis did win the war, at least in terms of the mind control technologies, and that American corporate logos are the result of really dark sigil magic, that finding out just how dark that stuff is and what it's really charged by really helps me prove that the legacy of this stuff is just as horrible as we suspect, and even if we're wrong about, subliminal advertising or, this thing being satanic or demonic or whatever, we're right we get the gist of it, that these logos are not here to be our friends.
What did you learn about Aleister that you didn't know beforehand? And now you have to take the literary approach and freedom of your view. What did you learn about him that you didn't know before?
The more I learned about him, the more it wasn't that he was clownish or funny in the overt sense, but the more self-deprecating and it seemed like not that he wasn't serious, but that he wasn't sort of sinister and it wasn't this one note, British mage mystic, that, he got kind of fat. He did funny things. He left his lights on during the air raids because he thought it was a sign of cowardice to turn them off, and he would get these tickets from whatever their civil defense group is. He would get these tickets for leaving his lights on when they're getting bombed, and he would be just, England, stand fast, stand fast. So that was it was kind of surprising to see him like that, and then to depict him like that. And Mike was not afraid to have Crowley walking around naked in his flat, as he often would be, and show his little dick sticking out there. It was who does that? You don't draw Crowley nude. The lightning's going to come get you if you do that. So that was kind of surprising. And I kept being surprised by how occulty the World War II really was. That fact that Winston Churchill is listening to Ian Fleming, who's bringing messages from Aleister Crowley, that Maxwell Knight, who's the guy on whom James Bond was based, was part of Crowley's coven, and that these guys, these military guys in suits and uniforms, were going to Crowley's house and doing sex rituals. It's like, oh my gosh, this is not just some myth. This is as real gets.
I did a show maybe 3 years ago on Crowley, and I'm not going to get into specifics here, but the author that I had on the show was saying, look, Crowley is completely misunderstood. He's actually a good guy. He did this, he did that, and I got email for months after that. Church, he was the worst man ever. We cannot change his image. You doing this is a disservice, and it's uncool. It's not right. And I had to take a step back, and once again, I don't know which is real and what isn't, but the Italians certainly took it upon themselves, to paint him in a certain light with the bestiality and the other stuff that was going on. They alleged, right? We had that issue. And then there's the other side where Aleister didn't mind being called the most evil man in the world either. He never really fought that. So we're dealt with which one is really true. Was he really an evil man, or is he just completely misunderstood, and that's been lost to history?
Hey, Jimmy, I've never had a chance to actually ask Douglas this, but this is a question that I've always had. Do you think that Aleister was what he says he was, or that he was sort of the first troll, the first sort of pre-internet troll, flipping his nose and his finger at society? Because he was part of the early art scene, and I wonder how much of this was just him liking sex and drugs and flipping finger off to the establishment and saying these things, like he left somebody dead in the Himalayas and then enjoying that because it's so outrageous. Do you think he was more a performer, or do you think that he wanted to live up to what he wanted to? Because I found it interesting at the very end of his life that he had a daughter and he seemed to love her very much. I don't know.
Hey, Mike, if you're going to co-host the show, keep the questions short.
Okay, yeah. So what do you think?
I think both. I think Crowley was really good at recontextualizing things after they happened. So he goes up the Himalayas, and the other guy can't make it, and he was kind of selfish or something, and let that guy die. Then he comes back, and it's like, okay, how could we play this? And that's when the showman kind of emerges. There's a trail of women who he you could say damaged, who were behind him. There were the kids that weren't really taken care of. He didn't. It doesn't seem like he lived a particularly ethical life on a person-to-person level, but I do think he was striving for a different kind of goodness. You read stories about the Buddha, and the guy left his wife and kid to go sit under the tree. I got to go be spiritual. Bye, honey. That it always kind of bothered me. Because it's not good social hygiene. And no, I don't think Crowley had it either. And he was a drug addict through a lot of it, a sex addict through a lot of it. And it's tricky. If you're gonna, we're gonna do a ritual tonight, and there's 3 young ladies involved and a whole bunch of drugs. I mean, yeah, some of it's going to be for the spiritual seeking, and some of it's going to be I'm getting laid tonight. He's a human being. So I think part of it's the problem that rock stars have now, or certainly had in the 70s and 80s. That you are in a position of power, and you've got all sorts of people who are willing to do all sorts of things to have these experiences with you. And it's much messier than the kinds of lives that most of us live.
And then there's the Hitler side of things. Our knowledge of Hitler is pretty extensive at this point. I mean, he's one of the most researched characters in modern history, no doubt. But what did you learn about him that surprised you?
I guess, I didn't really understand that the Holocaust was part of a magical sigil until this. I really thought it had more to do with the sort of, the international Jew of Henry Ford and these beliefs in what was pure and what wasn't. And I honestly think it had less to do with that than this commitment to magic, and I read about his, when he went in around 1938 and managed to get the Spear of Destiny, which is supposed to be the spear that killed Christ, and he brought it to this, to this church and then to this bunker, and he protected it. And I mean, 2 weeks after Patton got the spear is when Hitler killed himself. So, in some ways, I was surprised by how kind of stupid he was, on a certain level. I believe in magic as such, and I understand the power of the will and all, but there's a certain point at which you can, you've got to go subtle with that stuff. You can't think you can sort of lock into a magical reality like in an industrial way, with gears. And I feel like Hitler had a very black and white understanding of it. He didn't get the subtlety of it, and that's really why the book's got to be in black and white. It's why World War II happened in black and white. It's because he didn't have a sense of spectrum, which may be why he wasn't a good artist. Finally, you've got to be able to understand those hues.
What other historical figures did you guys weave into the book?
Rudolf Hess is in there. Rudolf Hess got actually. Crowley believes that he was able to do it through magic and through certain incantations and communications to others in the secret societies. But they got Rudolf Hess to fly to Scotland, where he thought he was going to meet Churchill and negotiate the end of the war. He was Hitler's deputy Führer, and he goes over totally on his own without Hitler's permission, gets on this plane and goes. And of course, they just grab him because it was one of Ian Fleming's plots. They grab Hess, and it's believed that after 2 or 3 rounds of questioning up there, that they brought him down to the Tower of London, and Aleister Crowley himself interrogated Rudolf Hess and gave him mescaline. And he didn't really get a lot of information out of him, but the guy went crazy after that, and he always claimed that he got drugged when he was at the Tower of London.
I got this question just came in on Twitter. It says, please ask Doug and Mike if the Collins elite factor into the Aleister and Adolf story and their book.
They do not. The Collins elite?
Okay, well that answers
don't.
that. Okay,
at least not that I know of. Okay. They might, but no. There's other weird. There is a lot of other weird history in there.
Jack Parsons stuff is my favorite.
That's where I was going.
There's just a phone call, but Jack Parsons Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard had a relationship with Crowley. Crowley wanted them to bring him over to the United States, where he could run the Golden Dawn or whatever secret society they were going to have. And he introduced the two of them. Crowley introduced Parsons to Hubbard because Parsons had these boats. He had a boat business, and he needed someone to drive a boat from the West Coast to the East Coast. So they got Hubbard to do it, and Hubbard stole the boat. So I've got this phone call from Parsons calling Crowley saying, he took the boat. What am I supposed to do now?
I don't know if you know this, but in Pasadena, there is the Parsons building there, right? And it's big, and it dominates the skyline in downtown Pasadena. And every time I drive by it and I see Parsons at the top, I don't think about anything except that strange relationship that they all had back in the 40s and how it all ended and what is really behind, the Parsons Engineering Building there. It's a part of history that most Americans don't know about or have ever heard about.
When you look at those weird connections, you have, Jack Parsons, who was the beginning of JPL, and they joked it was Jack Parsons' lab, and his obsession with the occult and Crowley and trying to tie in the Douglas could probably tell this better, but trying to tie in the atomic bomb with raising the beast of the apocalypse, like he was serious about that stuff, and that's at the base of NASA. And as you know from a lot of your other guests, a little shout out to Mike Vera.
Yes.
That the astrology, the magicians, all that stuff. It doesn't seem so crazy when you know the history. I mean, I don't necessarily believe it's. I don't know what to think, but
But they believed it. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, they might not now, but their foundation is that. That's the foundation.
Yep, and it's not just that they believe it, but I came to believe in the early '90s. I studied the formation of the internet, and what I found out was that it was my most psychedelic friends from college who had moved to California to become part of the whole, the original internet, and got the jobs at Apple and Sun and Northrop. And the reason they needed psychedelic people to build out the net was because these were the only people who were accustomed to hallucinating their reality. You were hiring people to build another realm. So of course you're going to hire psychedelic people, and children who are also good at imagining these new realms. And I think back then with Jack Parsons and the scientists, for people who are going to be able to imagine that kind of power and these kinds of transformative technologies, a lot of times it's going to be people who've done whatever the equivalent is of hallucination, of vision quest, of going to uncharted regions of consciousness in order to be able to really contend with a very different reality. And we're talking, in Einstein and Parsons' case, ultimately we're talking about a quantum reality. How does this universe work?
And it's really funny. I always picture Steve Jobs, tripping on mushrooms. And without that, right? Without that, we wouldn't probably be here. I wonder if Bill Gates. You think Bill did some shrooms?
I don't. I don't. And I think if we had gotten the Windows, the pre-Windows, if we had gotten the DOS universe, we'd have a very different internet today.
Yeah. But it's an interesting concept because. When you look at the anti-drug world that is out there, but then you look on the flip side, without drugs, some of the great things that we have today, the vision for it came from somewhere. I'm not saying it's all drugs, but I'm saying that those anti-drug people that are talking on their iPhone, right? Mm-hmm. you know what I mean? And it's pretty fascinating to think about it. Then you go back to what Crowley was about, where Jack Parsons was coming from, and our entire space program might have come off of those guys trying to find a vortex in the desert, right? Very high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a fascinating concept. We're going to take a break right here, and we're going to pick this up on the backside when we come back. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming. We're talking about their new book, Aleister and Adolf. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store. So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on a smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If your home has hard water, then it's likely that limescale is clogging your pipes, damaging your appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars each year. You can eliminate limescale in the entire house with HydroCare products available at Wave Home Solutions. Easy and efficient with no maintenance, no salts, no chemicals, and no coils. And you can buy with confidence from Wave Home Solutions. Performance guaranteed. Just go to bestwater411.com. That's bestwater411.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guests tonight, Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming, talking about their new book, Aleister and Adolf. And I wanted to kind of go here for a second. Would you call this alternative history? Okay, Doug, if that's you, we've lost you. You're in the background.
There we go.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. I mean, it's an alternative history to what most of us are taught in school, I guess. But you know, the fact is that the history of the graphic novel is actually really accurate. You know, I didn't want to do it from Crowley's point of view because that's just too weird. We're not going to empathize with Crowley. Crowley's a bit more like Colonel Kurtz at the end of Apocalypse Now.
It kind of looks like him too, right?
So,
yeah.
Right. So I created a Martin Sheen character, you know, who ends up becoming kind of the kingpin of American advertising. But at the time, he's an army photographer who is enlisted by Patton to try to get Crowley's help in the occult war against Hitler, or at least to become involved in it and to get the spear and all that, because Patton was obsessed with swords and sort of military magic. So I created another character, and that's not true, you know. So the American soldier who's in this world is sort of our eyes into it, but all the things that happen that he witnesses and that he's a part of really did happen. You know, and then I just built a story around it to what would happen to the guy who's exposed to this, what would happen to the young American. And I made him a guy whose father died because his parents were like faith healer, theosophy, sort of Mary Baker Eddy followers. So he was really primed not to believe any of this. And there's nothing more extreme than a true kind of atheist who then becomes a true believer. So he, in some sense, becomes a truer believer than Crowley, which is why he wants to try to ultimately bring both forms of magic to America as advertising, as corporate sigil magic.
In a weird way. Oh, by the way, Michael's posting some pages here And that is Colonel Kurtz, man. That's well. Hey, Mike, did you give me a page? Did I get a page?
An original page?
Am I in this?
Oh, no. I'm sorry to throw you in this one.
Doug,
this is
he's
an evil book. I was afraid to put anybody I like.
Right. I'll tell you something really cool, Douglas, really quick. Michael has, a couple of times, snuck me in to some pages. And it's
I'm often just drawing for endless hours. I mean, drawing comic books it's not easy. The hours are really hard. So, I mean, one of the best things ever was finding, your library of shows on YouTube and then getting your the app and being able to listen to you anytime that I want. And, it's hours on end of you keeping me company. So it happens, man.
Yeah, but this is a book that's invested with some pretty powerful sigil magic. So I don't know.
Yeah, right.
You want to get your face in there too close.
Well, he made, in an indirect way, I was kind of an assassin. That was pretty cool. The J Church delivery, right? Special delivery.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've slipped your name in a couple times, just naming stuff after you and stuff. So yeah, like I said, you're like that Willie Nelson song, man. You're always on my mind.
Well, it was it felt kind of strange when that story or that scene ended the way it did, because it started off, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. All right. And then it ends with death, right? But anyway, moving on. Because the man in the high castle, right? Philip K. Dick, and the way that he treated that, you could have and sort of did with this other character, coming over to the United States and doing the stuff that he did. That is like the freedom of an alternative history too, as well. Did you read The Man in the High Castle?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Although in our case, I don't see it as an alternative history. I just see it as, okay, I've personified the migration,
right,
of
right,
Nazi style image control to the American advertising industry, and I made this guy, but that guy really personifies how America saw it.
Yeah, reality.
Yeah, I mean, Mussolini was on the cover of Time magazine 3 times, and the first 2 times it was as a hero. They thought American business really saw fascism as a good way to deal with the worker and with labor unions and all these problems. They thought, let's go that way. And it wasn't really until they saw the atrocities of Hitler that they went, oh, well, maybe we don't want to go that way. But they did. They just wanted to go that way. But let's just not burn Jews while we do it. Let's do the same kind of thing, but make it look like people's choice rather than something that's being dictated. And that's where, Margaret Mead and Gregory Bateson were hired by FDR, and they created what they were going to call they wanted a world of screens. They imagined an America someday that had screens everywhere that allowed people to make choices. And of course, you were just choosing between one corporation and another, but that illusion of choice, that you're at least choosing between 2 things, Coke or Pepsi, McDonald's or Burger King, would promote this a kind of a false democratic ideal.
Why is it that we are aware of exactly what you're saying? We are aware of this, but we don't seem to care. It's the symbolism and that the illusion of freedom of choice is there, but there isn't a freedom of choice, but we don't seem to fight it.
Well, if they can make the illusion good enough, which is sort of what the Matrix was arguing, if you can still get steak once a week, then, let me do it. But the problem is more and more people are being left out. More and more people are actually not getting to partake of the illusion of comfort in American corporate capitalism, and we're starting to hear the signs, whether it's Black Lives Matter and Bernie Sanders or Trumpists. There are people who are saying, no, I'm not convinced anymore. This doesn't work.
How difficult is it, and this is for both of you, now that you've gotten to the end of this project, how difficult is it to drive down the road and look at the symbolism or see it on television or in print or in videos and MTV? And how difficult is it because you see it everywhere?
Well, I mean, for me, it went in stages, so at first it's difficult because you see it's everywhere. But then the more you feel capable of recognizing it, the sillier it looks. It's like I feel like I'm moving through the world wearing those sunglasses and they live.
Yes.
I can see it all and it seems so clunky and so obvious and so stupid. Then the only part that continues to amaze me is that other people aren't seeing right through it too. But that's why I do my work. That's why I did the comic, to say, look, and you've got to do it in a comic. You can't do it in words. You have to show them at that point, this is how it's done. And they go, oh my God. When you get the duh response,
right?
That's sort of my favorite one to try to induce in people when they're reading. It's not the catharsis of, oh, good, we made it out. It's more, duh. I've been living, believing this thing is real, and these guys just showed me it's a fiction, that it's an illusion, to pull back the curtain, to expose the underlying operating system so that people go, oh, this isn't just a precondition of nature. This is something that was created by people with an agenda who may have very well have left the building by now, but I'm living in their world, and I'm going to get down to the bottom of it.
How about you, Michael? You're an artist, and here you are doing exactly this. You are now recreating the symbolism, and you're an artist, and you see it everywhere. I mean, what's it like now for you to walk down the street? Is it just obvious, hit you in the head kind of stuff? And are you?
It is.
But are
it
you?
Is obvious.
Wait, are you a participant too? Right? You're an artist.
Well, in a way, I'm a participant, but at least I know that my messaging isn't trying to trick somebody into some, parallel evil or, bend them to my will of things other than to try to express some fun ideas, It is weird when I see corporate symbols that are clearly from the occult, and it's not that I think that corporation is a cult, but I'm thinking, well, what was that choice? Why did they choose that symbol? Why did they choose this rising sun symbol to represent their company? And I use rising sun because I see it all the time. And that's a very old occult symbol. And I'm sure lots of people are thinking, oh, it's a new company, it's a new thing. But there's still this sort of energy attached to it that, makes you question, what were these choices? My wife, Taki, and I always talk about bad advertising. Like, what was the point of that? That makes no sense. That was a horrible thing to associate your product with, and et cetera, et cetera. So, people spend billions of dollars on just tweaking an image or a symbol or a logo. And there's so much thought and energy put into it. It's not just thrown away. So you got to question, well, why? What is this thought about? And even if it's not insidious, is it just this leftover thing? Like Douglas just said, we're kind of living in a foundation that somebody else built. The early days of advertising, go back again to the Nazis. They had to advertise and convince people that stuff like genocide was okay. And they didn't just come out with their big advertising slogan right away. They started very slow, like, hey, look at the old. Look at these elderly people who can't get by, and look at the mentally handicapped. And, wouldn't it be the right thing to put them down, to, put them at peace and to protect our gene pool? And then it builds and builds and builds. That was early advertising. You had to sell that to the people of Germany, and they did it successfully. So, yeah, I just kind of question whenever I see these symbols, good or bad, what was the thought process behind it?
It's interesting that Douglas brought up "they live" because they live, Douglas, just so you know my attitude, That's not a movie. That's a documentary.
It's at very least prophetic.
Oh man, that was a documentary, man. And so when we talk about something like They Live, Douglas, you're New York. You have Times Square right there. And and when I was just there with Rita a couple of months ago, I've walked down Times Square 50 times in my life, and I love it. But that is They Live, right?
Yep.
And it's right there in your face. It's shameless.
No, it's as if the world has grown a second skin, of advertising. It's just when you walk around there, it's this place that used to be a city that is now a one big moving set of advertising, of memes coming at you from one direction or another. And we have a great scene at the end of the book where the character, where the kid who hears this whole story is, moving through 1990s Times Square and seeing it for what it is. He's seeing all of these logos as the sort of the living sigil creatures that they are, and it's this really heavy moment, but that should be happening for all of us all the time. I mean, I found out that, it was Crowley after the V is for Victory sign. He had this other one he wanted to give Churchill, but after the Rudolf Hess incident, he wasn't quite as admired by intelligence as he had been before that, because he drove the guy crazy before they could really question him properly. But he came up with another one and a poem for it that he called Thumbs Up. He wanted Winston Churchill to be giving the thumbs up sign as, we're doing great. And he wrote these poems and a booklet about thumbs up. And he said it was authored by the founder of the V is for Victory sign, without his name. But, the thumbs up, of course, now is the Facebook logo. It's what you click on to say, I like this. It's a thumbs up sign, and I have the characters in the book say, someone should try that. Someone should use that, to approve of things they like on the net. They could go thumbs up, and just to make people aware that, oh, right, it does say that. And even though it may not have been some sigil magic idea, that the foundations for these kinds of symbols and how they work on us were forged by people who really wanted to do magic, who wanted to manipulate people on a mass scale.
And it's been extremely effective now going on. Let's go back to, say, 1930. Let's kind of, media kind of started there with radio and then moving into TV and of course today with the internet and where we are today. But corporations and their advertising, obey, just buy our stuff, has been so effective that it appears to me, and I think to everybody else, that corporate dollar, that corporation is now what is running the world. It isn't Washington, D.C., it's not Moscow, it's corporate dollars and corporate advertising that has taken over the decision-making on a global level. And I will say this right now. Am I wrong in having that view? I don't think I am.
But the difference is I don't think it's – I mean, I know there's bad people out there, but I don't think it's bad people consciously doing these things. I think it's a systemic problem. In other words, people are running the programs that were handed down to them without realizing what their power is, without realizing what their true effect is on other people. Even the people running corporations, they're kind of stuck because they got these shareholders who want the price to go up no matter what, and they have to, do these awful things. And it's not like there's someone, however much we'd like to think so, it's not like there is a Führer in charge. At least Crowley and Hitler knew to some extent what they were doing with this sigil magic. Once you take it and you just make it the kind of basic operating principles of your economy and your media space, that's really scary. So the main thing I'm trying to do, it's like with those glasses, is wake people up, is to say it's not that they they live, because there is no they. The they is us, finally. We're the ones who are perpetuating this system. We're the people who go on websites that, talk about brand me and do The Secret to wish for great stuff and put up little vision walls and things.
Right.
That we are engaged in this in the same way that they are. We're the ones who want our retirement plans to go up, not down. And we're the ones demanding the corporations do it one way or another. So it's a systemic issue, which is why it has to be brought to light. It's not about exposing the enemy. It's about showing how the thing works, because we're still in charge of it.
Well, okay. So in the House of Cards world, so to speak, where you have this fractional banking system, you have this sigil magic that is driving the symbology of the advertising to grow, and grow something from nothing. And now we're at the tipping point where if we open up the eyes and put on the glasses, and we should, but man, is the end of that fixing it? Is that the end of everything? Does it all come down?
Well, a lot of it comes down. I mean, it's funny. People say that the reason why aliens would be hidden from us is that if we knew that there was aliens on other planets, then the nation state would no longer seem like the biggest entity to which you could belong. And while I don't know that aliens are going to make themselves known, I feel like as we open our eyes to things like this, we see the real problem, something like climate change and the fact that we may be already in the midst of an extinction phase. That's the kind of thing that people become aware of. And if they become aware of that, then this realm of symbols becomes a lot less important, and what starts to matter are your human relationships. When the economy crashes, how many farmers do you know? What kind of value do you create for your neighbors? Do they like you? And so the more time you actually spend engaged in real life pursuits, I think and creating value for others rather than, working in a cubicle doing mortgage, restatements, the more the easier it is to become immune to these kind of false idols.
How close are we to, I don't want you to scare the crap out of anybody, but certainly your answer will. How close are we to not being able to recover from this manufactured debt and corporate control?
We're really too far. I mean, in most ways. I mean, the problem. There's a lot of problems. I mean, but the big one is growth. We have an economic system because we have a debt-based currency. We have an economic system that requires growth. It's based on debt, and we're finally getting to a place where we're realizing, we can sustain our economy, but we really can't grow it anymore without externalizing more war and more climate and somehow expanding into China or somewhere else. But if we reach that plateau, even as a nation, then what do we do about our debts? What do we do about all that money overseas? So I think there's going to be some really dark choices that get made. So America might say, look, China, if you forgive our debt of these billions, you can have Taiwan, or you could have that sea over there. There's going to be, I have a feeling there's going to be some big compromises made as things shift. But no, the economy as we've configured it it really can't work the way we're working it. We've got to at least start doing things like guaranteed minimum income and just print money for people to use. The reality of the economy is we have more than enough stuff. America burns food every week to keep market prices high. We tear down houses in California because they're in foreclosure. We can't let the homeless guy live in the house because he doesn't have a job. But we don't need any more jobs because we have enough stuff. So we're going to have to create a job for him to make some plastic thing that people don't need in order to justify giving him the houses and food that we already have in abundance. And that's an ass backwardsness that's ultimately unsustainable. So I think the other shoe dropping in some ways is a beautiful shoe. It's the shoe that says, oh my gosh, we've got all this stuff in abundance. We've got enough. We can work less, and then it's just a matter of figuring out an economic model that's based on the circulation of all this value rather than the extraction of storage units.
The urban legend, and it's sort of true. All urban legends are based on some kernel of truth, right? We understand that. But the urban legend out there is Clinton handed off to Bush a surplus, right? Or the economy, that we weren't in debt, right? And the balance, the budget was balanced, and that's what he handed off. If that is true, and you can answer if that is true or not, but how do we go from that to $20 trillion in debt in such a short time? Is it just because the system is broke and the only way to fix it is to go into more debt, and that is accumulating like on a Richter scale and out of control?
Well, Clinton, for all of his strengths and weaknesses, Clinton presided over the dot-com boom, and he handed off the economy, at the moment of the dot-com bust. And what was it, March 2000 was when that crashed. So there was a lot of vapor, there was a lot of valuations, so is the economy really great when AOL stock is at 72 because Steve Case is busy mailing CD-ROMs to everybody and then uses his funny money to go buy Time Warner.
God, I forgot all about that. That still blows my mind.
Months later, that they realized that, oh, I get it. He was cashing in his chips because AOL had peaked. Its subscriber base had stopped, so he was going to spend that money before it crashed. And the dot-com thing crashed. So, it's been for 75 years, since the late 1930s, corporate profit over corporate size has been declining. So what that means is corporations are really good at taking all the money off the table and storing it in, share price or in their bank accounts, but they're really bad at deploying assets. They don't have true innovative capacity anymore. And that's because they tend to make more money on finance than they do doing whatever it is that they do. Even Microsoft, just this year, Microsoft went and bought LinkedIn, and Microsoft's sitting on billions of dollars of cash, but they didn't spend their money to buy LinkedIn. They took a loan to buy LinkedIn because they could get a loan at such a low interest rate that they figured they can make more money off the money than they could doing anything. They could actually using their revenue to buy something.
Is it there's something fundamentally wrong with that?
To me, it sounds like magic.
Well, and if you think about it, it is, because the banks are creating money out of nothing for that loan, right? There's no money being printed.
What's fundamentally wrong with it, though, is that when the corporations take all the money off the table, they act like a vacuum cleaner. They take all the money, so then there's no money left to circulate in the economy. So real people and real places end up without currency. That's why having a monopoly currency is really it's not stupid. It was brilliant, but it's a scheme. A monopoly debt-based currency was a scheme perpetrated by the proto-monarchs of late medieval Europe because they were trying to stem the rise of the middle class. There was a peer-to-peer economy. They had local marketplaces with local monies that were – sometimes they were like poker chips that you just use them to trade your goods, and then they expired at the end of the day. But those monies allowed the real economy to grow. So they made all of those kinds of monies illegal. They hired the Knights Templar, Philip the Fair hired the Knights Templar to fight anybody who had the wrong currency, and he killed them right afterwards. But it was the end of the Knights, actually. But we ended up with the currency where the wealthy stay wealthy by lending their monopoly currency to the rest of us who want to transact. And they just make money on the float. They make money because they charge interest on the money they've lent us.
Was it because
that requires the economy to grow?
Yeah. Was that because the poor were starting to get money, right?
Yeah.
The classes were kind of closing back together, so to speak.
Yeah, the former peasant class was becoming the merchant class, or what they
Right.
called the burghers or the bourgeois.
Right.
You know, they were competing. They were getting as wealthy as the aristocracy.
Unbelievable. What a conversation tonight, guys. I want to thank both of you. And where can everybody go and get the book right now?
Where can they go? You tell them, Mike. You know more about this business than I do.
Well, first, I would like to encourage everybody to look up their local comic book store and to try and go to their local retailer to get comics. That's the best place to go. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you got to do like an internet thing, you can visit Dark Horse Comics at darkhorse.com. And of course, you know, the big giant empire of publication that is Amazon.
Yeah, and Amazon doesn't get the comic till 14 days from now. So,
So go to your comic book store.
Yeah, there's a 2-week. Amazon has a 2-week lag, so that you can it's to encourage buying stuff from your local merchant rather than the behemoth.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you both. And Doug, Mike's on this show all the time, whatever. But Doug, I've got to get you back on for a full show so we can go really deep into all of this stuff. And I just want to thank you so much for making me look kind of smart tonight.
Oh, thank you, dude. I'll come back anytime. And thanks really so much for what you do.
Yeah, thank you. All right, guys, behave and be well out there.
Take care, guys.
I can tell that Doug read Mice Templar. I'm just letting you guys know that right now.
Yay.
Thank you guys so much, and be safe out there.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming. Their new book, Aleister and Adolf. And Michael's right. Man, go support your local comic book store. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out! That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-618-WAVE, 888-618-WAVE, or visit mydryhome.com. mydryhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hard shell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I want to thank Douglas Rushkoff and Michael Avon Oeming. Great conversation tonight. And do go check out their new book, Aleister and Adolf. What a fantastic conversation. All right. I'm going to open up the phone lines really quick. 323-825-5045. I'll do that for everybody. 323-825-5045. I was actually trying to tweet here and get that out, so I guess I'll do this in real time. You got to love listening to me try to type. You realize how bad I really am. But there you go. Boom. Done. All right, got that out of the way. Yeah, Doug, man. Michael. Yeah, perfect marriage there on this new book. And Doug, the way that he writes, and if you should actually, if you have the time, go out and check out some of Doug's lectures and presentations and documentaries that are on YouTube. And you can also go to his website, rushkoff.com, and do that too as well. Because then you start to realize not only how bright and brilliant he is, but he's on our side. So go and check that out. All right, phone lines are open, 323-825-5045. I touched upon this next thing that I want to talk about. I touched upon it 1,000 times over the last few years. But and we talked about it tonight during the show briefly. But you've got to watch out for fake news. You've got to do it. And even some people out there that think they're pretty smart get caught. And Sean Hannity today, the radio host, Sean Hannity earlier today went out and embraced a piece of fake news. And you can't do that. And it was about President Obama deleting endorsements of Hillary Clinton from his Twitter account. Now, right there, that's the red flag. Just stop right there. Just stop. No matter how cleverly it's written. But Sean, who is out there speaking to, I don't know how many he speaks to a day, but probably over the course of a month, it's definitely millions and millions of people. He's an influential guy. And Sean also enjoys being controversial and getting out there and talking smack, which is all fine. It's all fine if it's true. Well, if you're going to go and make these accusations and speak live on the air, man, you and your team better have your ducks in a row. Hannity used the made-up news to claim that President Obama's legacy might be jail. Again, if you're going to go there, look, I'm not an Obama fan. I'm not any of that. I'm a truth fan. That's all. So if you're going to go there, you better make sure your stuff is correct. And then when you're on live radio and you don't have time to vet, dude, take your foot off the gas, back off of it, and do the story tomorrow. That's what you do. The deleted tweets claim could have been disproven by a quick Twitter search. And that's what your producer is there to do. Go and check Twitter. Just go there for if that's what the fake news story and you're claiming you don't know it's fake, right? Go and check. It's instantaneous. Go check Twitter. Well, later in the day, Hannity had to go and tweet a correction. And he had to apologize, which to me just ain't good enough. You're a professional. You're listened to. You have a huge team behind you when you're live on the radio. These kind of mistakes should never, ever happen. This is exactly what we were talking about today. The media has a way to influence people, and people go and read your tweet. They listen to your show, and they call it fact because you are supposed to be the professional that you are. Well, today, the progression of events illustrates how fake news stories expand and spread from crazy-ass fringe websites to nationally syndicated radio shows with millions of listeners. And in this case, the fake news originated on a fake-ass news site called Your News Wire. I'm calling it right now, which publishes a mix of true, slanted, and completely made-up fake stuff. Completely. And so people don't know what they're reading. They don't know if it's real or not. Then, just like that classic game of telephone that you played when you were a kid, by the time that story got to Hannity, even the fact fakes were wrong. The site wrongly claimed that, and I'm quoting from the site, they said, Michelle Obama has scrubbed all references to Hillary Clinton from both of her Twitter accounts, end quote, and implied that it was the result of FBI investigations into Clinton. Now, people read this and they think that the site is a legitimate site, and the next thing you know, this stuff is all over Twitter, and it doesn't matter if this is Trump fake news, it's Hillary fake news, it's Obama fake news, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it's about. People believe this stuff, and they believe what they want to believe. So it propagates, and it caught on fire, and it got posted everywhere. So Hannity and his producer, they go and they read the thing, and the next thing you know, it's on, people are reposting it on Twitter and Facebook, and then that gets picked up on other forums and other websites, and it just propagates from there. So Hannity thought that it was a real story, didn't question it, turned around and questions his producer. Producer says, dude, it's true. It's true. Well, it was a she, by the way. It's true. A thicket of far right-wing websites picked up this story and took off running. Red State Watcher said that the news was breaking. And News Ninja 2012 said, this is suspicious. She's doing it because of the FBI. Gateway Pundit said, the rats are jumping ship. Right? Pro-Trump social media users tweeted about it. It went all out over, retweeted, and liked. And a contributor to a relatively credible website, Forex Live, they ended up posting an item asking, is the First Lady, I'm quoting here, is the First Lady distancing the Obamas from the Clintons? End quote. Here you go. A complete fabrication, and it turned into truth. And the untruths turned into truths. And the facts got amplified. Then new characters were added to this fake storyline. And I'm quoting here. Elizabeth Warren just unfollowed Hillary, and Michelle Obama deleted all of her tweets about Hillary. Elizabeth Warren is now unfollowing. And you know what it's like, right? You unfollow somebody today, right? And the implications of that, the thought of it, and it's not true, by the way, it's just completely not true, causes us to freak out, right? Now, Jack Posobiec, who calls himself a recovering political operative, tweeted at 2 p.m. today, Elizabeth Warren just unfollowed Hillary. What is he doing? Right? It's just all made up stuff. he kept going, adding President Obama's name to the list. That Obama unfollowed Hillary with no evidence to back any of this up. By 4 p.m., this entire mess makes its way to the Sean Hannity show. Yeah. Then Hannity tweeted after his show. He had to. He tweeted this, and I'm quoting. Correction. Live on radio, I read a Gateway pundit report that Michelle Obama had deleted mentions of Hillary Rodham Clinton. And a listener said Barack Obama. And Elizabeth Warren did the same thing. Well, I said it. Fact is, they didn't. And I humbly apologize. End quote. That is what I have been talking about. Fake news. I get tweets from all of you all the time with links to websites. I get it. Politics, UFOs, whatever, right? Conspiracy stuff. I get it. I get emails every single day with a link, right? Go, Jimmy, it's true, man. Check this out. And I go and I look and I see who the website is. I'm like, man, I understand it's cleverly written. I understand it reads as truth and it reads as fact. If it's on the internet, it doesn't make it true. And you hear this all the time from me and others. Be smart. Be smart before you go and think. Now, there are some alternative websites out there that are awesome, that go and take the time to write, to vet, and to disclose news to us that you wouldn't get anywhere else or any mainstream anything. And I understand that. So go and do that. But please take the time when you see a tweet like this, you just have to stop and ask yourself, is this really true? Well, after all of this today, Sean Hannity goes out and apologizes, and he should have. Okay? He's a professional. But after all of that, instead of nutting it up, and he's the boss, it's his show. It's his fault. Not his producers, not anybody else's. His staff is there to support him. But after all of this, he didn't accept responsibility. He apologized, but then he went on to say he threw his producer under the bus, saying, I asked my producer on the air if it was true, and she said it was. End quote. Dude. And he throws the on the air there, so he's got his little disclaimer. He's got his little out clause. And that was even more uncool. Sean Hannity, people look up to you, man. They respect you. You're a pro. You've got a huge audience. You influence millions of people. And you go and you make a mistake like this, and I'm just going to say it directly. You're not entitled to make this kind of mistake. And apologizing after the fact isn't good enough. And throwing your producer under the bus is even worse. It should have never happened to begin with. You go out there and you're using the excuse, this is live radio, man. People make mistakes. Well, that's true. But something like this that has this much juice behind it, and you know, Sean, as the words came out of your mouth, you knew that you were not speaking the truth. You knew this. I know this. He's too smart. Oh, man, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I hope that it's right. And later, after the show, I'll find out that it was right. There's a miracle here. It's unbelievable. Michelle Obama is unfollowing people. No, you know that it just didn't happen. But you said it anyway. You need to think about that, and you need to be a professional. All right. I've said it. I've ranted. What's up, Eric?
Hey, we were talking about fake news. So our friend Carrie Cassidy, who, by the way, did a great show with her and Mike Barrow earlier in the year, Did you see her tweet today?
No, I didn't.
Hillary, this is what Carrie says. Hillary is a card-carrying member of the secret government. She was just doing her job. NJ-12, Hillary's secret server and the secret government secret space mission.
Right. Okay.
I just get a kick out of this stuff.
Well, look. Carrie's cool. Carrie's cool. Number one, Carrie's cool. But that tweet and saying that can't prove it or disprove it. I can't. And there's a kernel of truth to that tweet, right? Okay, I get that. But we're talking about the secret space program and the Clintons. Okay, all right, great. And there could be something to it. But that's okay. To me, that's okay. And that could also, for those out there that aren't part of our circles, are going to look at that and just call that satire, right? But when you are Sean Hannity and you're doing stuff like this and you are quoting directly and you're calling it fact and now saying that Obama is going to be in jail, dude, you need to really watch yourself, because it was just a complete fabrication. It was a complete untruth. And that's what I'm saying, where people out the influence of Sean Hannity and CNN and Fox and RT and BBC and Sky News and MSNBC. These are big influences. Wall Street Journal, right? New York Times, Washington Post, Miami Herald. These are big outlets, and they need to be careful about reporting fake news. And Sean Hannity is part of the mass media, man. You just can't do it. You can't. And today, when this news broke, and off of a fake website, people want to believe what they want to believe, so they go and they click on it, and the next thing you know, it's on Twitter, and the next thing you know, Mike Baer is retweeting it, right? And then boom, 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 boom. I'm poking fun at Mike, but you understand what I'm saying. Anybody can go and retweet this stuff, and when you start doing it, people look at you for your credibility. What if I retweeted that today? What if I did that? People are going to go and look and go, well, Church retweeted it. Oh, I trust Church, right? And they're not going to go back to the sources or go to Twitter to see if Michelle Obama stopped following Hillary, whatever. But nobody's going to do that, and that's the problem. And it is a fascinating thing to me today, is the degradation of moral character to the point where people are actually typing this stuff up, posting it on the web, and just seeing if it's going to take off running or not, so they can get their clicks. And it's clickbait. It's crazy, man. There's a serious degradation of ethics.
You're going to have Mike on the show here in a few days, aren't you, for the election show?
Love Mike. Mike's the best.
Yeah, Mike's awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah, Mike's the best. He tweets
it'd be kind of fun if you can get Carrie to come on, because that show.
Let's let the last one just remain in radio history as lovely as it was. But Mike, I think has fun in his tweets too. I don't think that he believes half the stuff the political stuff that he tweets. He just believes in what he believes, and he's having fun with it. Some of the stuff that he does is cool, and it's and he wants the message to get out there. So I just poke fun at Mike, and I think the world of him. So, all right, man, you called me. What's up?
Well, that was it. Last night was awesome, of course. For those who, there was, I think I told you, even talked about it. I don't think we talked about it on a little brief interview, but when I was, I filmed the seance. I don't know if you know that or not.
Okay.
But I'm not going to tweet it, and I'm not going to share it with anybody.
No, that's a private thing.
Private information.
That's private. Yeah.
So that's private. But the point is at one point I was filming behind the lady that was doing the seance. And there was something, it looked, I don't know what a ghost is supposed to look like, but there was a flash. And I think you mentioned you saw something too, but it flashed across with that back screen, the back sliding glass doors. It went across the window, and it was probably about 2 feet by 2 feet, and it didn't move so quick that I was second guessing myself. There was definitely something that moved across.
Interesting.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. Yeah, I don't know. And here's what's interesting. I'll send you the video when I figure out how to do it. So while I was filming the seance, my camera was steady. My phone was steady. But there was this little tiny orb thing that was just moving around. And I'm thinking, and I kept watching the video thinking, is it because this is some sort of anomaly? Am I moving my camera on my phone and that's causing it? But it was still, and you'll see it. There was something that I didn't see with my eyes while this seance was happening, but there was something moving around the screen, like a little orb. So I'll send those to you when I figure out how to do it, and then if you want to share it with me.
Yeah, I'd like to check it out. I'd like to check it out. Well, I did. I mean, I don't know what to make of it, but in the first or second segment of the show last night, as I forget who the guest was, but it looked orange, but I also had the orange Elvis glasses on, right? So that may have affected the color. But I saw this thing, man. There was a ceiling fan, and I saw this thing go, I'm not sure where it started from, but it was behind the ceiling fan, back towards the sliding glass doors. But this thing just shot across the room and went right through the center of my eyes, and went over and back of me. And I was talking at the time, and when it happened, and I looked up, and I thought to myself, did everybody just watch me act like crazy guy and look at something invisible that wasn't there? That's what I was thinking. But I saw it. I don't know. It was tiny. It was, an inch round or something. But it was like this little orb, man. It just came across the room and went. I don't know what it was. I don't know. It could have been some crazy reflection in the sunglasses, and I thought that I saw it. I don't know. I looked around. I tried to make it happen again. I moved my head around and tried to get this to happen again, and it didn't. And it didn't happen again the rest of the night. But I saw it, and I reacted to it. And I felt a little stupid because of the way that I reacted to it. I looked up, and there was nothing there. And I looked behind me, and there you go. That house, there's something going on there. There's definitely something going on. And the next time, I would like to go back and do another radio show from there, but absolutely nobody in the house. Nobody in the house. Chris Medina, myself, Rita, and David, and that is it. I want dead silence in the house, and I want to have Chris connect to people or things or spirits or entities live on the air and pick up that vibe, But it was great being there. And on Saturday, Eric, those things happened when we were there on Saturday, and that was a pretty uneasy feeling to have those things go down, because I know that I had nothing to do with it, and they did. There's something about that house, no doubt. And then my nephew gets locked in the bathroom for 30 minutes. I don't know what's up with that, because he's a big guy and he's a smart guy, and he can figure out how to get through a door that's locked.
Are those people on the Rita's side of the family, all these nieces and nephews, the comedians that were there?
No, the comedians are not part of the family. They're friends of ours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that
friends.
Lady was funny.
Oh, she's great. Oh, Mary's hilarious. And so
Mary was great.
Oh, no, Moses is on point too, man. He is a funny guy.
Oh, yeah. I was enjoying that a lot. That was classic stuff.
Oh, man, had a good time last night. And, again, thank you for hanging out, and thank you for the bottle of vodka.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was a great time. I appreciate the invite, and it was another great show tonight. So,
it was a great show tonight.
You got to wrap up your show here in a few minutes.
Actually, I'm 15 seconds late, so I will bid you farewell, Eric, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
All right, good night, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yep, Eric was there last night, and it was a lot of fun. That was a great time. I got to thank David Oeming one more time for allowing us into his home. Thank you, Douglas Rushkoff. Thank you, Michael Avon Oeming. Great conversation tonight. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Viteau, and Mark D. Kovar. Faded by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Tomorrow night, Holly Cook, right here. Oh, and Ronnie McMullen. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Everybody be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.